Hi, and welcome to Watercolor Lessons with Kathy. I'm Kathy Nichols, and I'm a lifelong artist, painter, and teacher. I help students of all ages tap their creativity with watercolor. Watercolor is a great way to express yourself, and it's easy to get started and do. I hope you join me to have fun learning how to paint with watercolor. I can't wait to see your paintings. In our first video, you learned about the materials you'll need to get started with watercolor. Now that you have them, let's begin. Today we'll paint a tulip, keeping the composition fun and simple. Sometimes I paint using a photo or one of my own paintings as a model, and sometimes I use my imagination and memory. Since we all know what a tulip looks like, we'll use our imagination and memory today. We'll use a basic technique called wet on wet and demonstrate the use of 4 brushes. This is a great way to get started creating your own watercolors. I'm taking my spray bottle and wetting the paper. Now I'm going to take my flat brush and spread the water so it's covering all of the paper. So the whole piece of paper is wet. Then I'm going to take my mop brush, dip it in the water, and I'm going to make the flower part of the tulip, and that is going to be red. So this palette has a color that's a little bit orange and more red, so I'm going to mix a little bit of both those colors. And I'm going to take my spray bottle and wet them. To get more of the color, a little bit of both. So I'm going to make my tulip shape, and you can see that the color is spreading out. Now if you don't like the way it's spreading out, you can dry the mop brush a little bit so it's almost completely dry and control some of that and wipe up some of the color. Again, I'm drying the brush, and I'm going to pick up some of that red where I don't want it. Doing it again. You might need to do it 2 or 3 times. So now I think I have my shape of my tulip that I want. And now I'm going to take my round with pointed tip brush, wet it, and take some yellow and some blue. I'm going to take my spray bottle to wet the paint. Easier to get more color out of it. So here's some of my yellow, and here's some of the blue. I'm going to make it more of a light green. So now I'm going to make a stem
for my tulip. And again, if you see some colors that run away, you can dry your brush and just go along the paint to make the line cleaner. See, one got away here. So there's my stem. Now I'm going to go back to my mop brush and make the leaf part of the plant, dipping it into the water. And this one I might make a little darker, so I'm adding some of the yellow and some of the blue. Now I'm going to do the leaf part. First I'm going to make the one on the right. Now I'm going to make the other side. Again, I'm going to dry my brush so I can get some of the runaway color. So you might notice that the watercolor dries lighter than what you paint, and that is common. So now I'm going to take my liner brush and dip it in the water. And this palette has some darker greens, and I'm going to use that. And I'm going to put some veins on my leaves. And you can see that it's showing up darker. I'm going to load my brush up with some more paint here. If you see puddles of waters, you can also kind of tap it if you don't want it as wet. And even use your piece of paper towel. So now we have our basic shapes of the tulip we want. I'm going to give it a little more minutes, a few minutes to dry before I start on the background. I see that the stem here could be a little darker, so I'm going to take my liner brush and add more of the green and put some up at the top here, and then carry the line down so it's a little more noticeable, and bring the stem up into the tulip. Like that. Now I'm going to give it a few minutes to dry. Now I'm going to add the background, and I'm going to do it with a mop brush, dipping my brush in my jar of water. And just check it with a paper towel to see how clean it is. Yep. Now I'm going to make blue the background, and I have two colors of blue. One is lighter, one is darker. So I'm going to take a little bit of both and see what color that comes up with. I'm going to put it here, just cleaning a little bit of the red out so I don't get the red in there. So there's some of the lighter blue with a dash of the darker blue. Now to do the background, I'm going to start down at the base of this leaf, and I'm starting close to the leaf, and then I'm spreading out. I feel like my paintbrush is a little too wet, so I'm going to just dab it with a paper towel to dry it a little bit. And I'm spreading the paint. I'm not re-dipping my brush for more color because I don't need to. There's still a lot of color in there. So I did that section, and now I'm going to reload my brush with more paint. Now I'm going to turn my painting this way so I can come at this angle, starting where I left off, starting at the leaf and then spreading out. And again, I'm not going to reload my paintbrush until most of the paint is gone. A little paint goes a long way with watercolor. So you don't need to always just refill it instantly with paint. Because even if there's a trace of paint in it, there's still some color in it, even though you might think there's not. So now I'm going to turn it back this way, and you can see it's lighter and darker there, which I like it that way, so I'm going to leave it that way. So I'm going to reload my paintbrush with paint, again with the light blue and a dash of the dark blue. And I'm going to start where I left off and go along the leaf and then draw the paint out towards the edge. Now there's kind of a line right there, so I'm going to kind of bring some of this paint back into this side of the painting. So it kind of blends and there's not like a physical line there. And now I'm going to stop a moment to give it some drying time. So right now the painting is damp, which you have to be careful that you can get the colors muddy if you work too much when it's just damp. You want to have it more not so damp but dry. So you can use your hair dryer and put it on low. If you have it too high, you can move paint actually around and that will alter your painting. So I'm going to put it on low. go over the painting. You can touch it with your hand to see if it's still damp or completely dry. It's still damp. And you can see where I touched it, it left a little print, which I'm not going to get too worried about. That's okay. And I think, you know, if you see something happening that you don't like, don't get too excited or worried about it. You might be able to fix it, or it might become part of the painting that you like. Okay. You can see when I touch it there, it's not making a mark, so you know it's definitely dry. So now I'm going to turn it off. So now I'm looking at my painting thinking, what do I need? I like the overall picture of it. Now, to me, with watercolor, you want to have dark and lights. And there's some darks here, but overall it looks light to me. So I want to add some color to the tulip, but I don't want a lot. So I'm going to use my smaller brush. I'm going to use my round with pointed tip brush. So I'm taking it and dipping it in the jar of water, and I'm going to add some of this red. And I'm going to make it so that the tulip has a shape of a leaf within the tulip. Now you can see that this is going to be darker than the original color, and that's what's going to add to give it depth. So I made one side with color and some of the original color showing through. And I think I want to do the same thing here, and I'm going to leave a little V there and spread the paint. You see, I'm not dipping it again because there is still a lot of paint on this paintbrush. Then I'm going to pause and look at it, and I like that. It's not too much. Now the one thing I think I do want to add is a little more darkness of the red at the base of the the base of the plant, of the tulip flower shape. So I'm going to dip my paintbrush and actually just go straight to the red and not mix any more in the palette, and come on the base of it. And it's going to be pretty strong. And if it's too strong, you can take your paper towel, and I'm going to weaken the color and dry my brush a little bit. And I'm taking some of the red away because I think it's too strong. Kind of blending it so it's not so strong and it doesn't just look like a glob of paint. Now I do need a little water, so I'm going to dip it in the jar to my brush so I can kind of smear the paint a little more. And I'm going around where I have the paint, and I think that's enough right there. So that's giving the flower some depth of too dark, too lighter, to the lightest. I think I need to extend it up to here a little bit. So I think I'm going to call that good. Now I'm going to work on the stem a little because it doesn't really stand out. And usually a stem is darker near where it is attached to the flower. So I'm going to take some of this dark green here, test the color here, add a tiny bit of yellow. I think that's good. And then put some of the darker green at the base and then drag it down into the stem. And I'm leaving some of the original color of the light green there. Then I'm going to draw a line like the stem has veins. Like that. So now I'm concentrating and looking at the leaves here, and when I look at them, they seem, there's two-tone of colors, this lighter green and green. So I'm going to attach, put my round with pointed tip brush into the green and start on this right side and spread some of the color so that it looks like it's attached to the stem there. I'm going to add some water here on my brush so I can spread more of the color like that. So then it looks like there's shapes within the leaves. Now I'm going to go on the other side. I have some color here, so I'll grab that color. And I'm going to go along here. Again, creating shapes within the leaf. I'm going to dip it in the water and just spread the color. I'm not adding more color. I'm just spreading the color that's on my paintbrush. I like leaving some of the light green. So now I'm going to stop for a minute and look at it. One of the easiest things with watercolor to do is to overdo it. Because you think, oh, I don't like that, and you go and try and change it, and the color can get darker or lighter. Right now, I like the overall look of the tulip. So now if I think and I look at the background, do I want the background plain like that? I think that I like adding a little contrast to the background. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stick with the same brush, clean it, and just add some of the light blue. And some of the areas where maybe I don't like the look of the paint, what it did here, I can add it here and just, I'm starting at the edge and going out. And I'm going to take some of my paper towel and blot it. And I'm going to continue to do that up here. Actually, that just needs a little paint. I'm going to take my brush and add more paint. Start at the side of the leaf and come out and paint out a little bit. Continue to come all the way up here and kind of create some holes like you see part of the sky and it's clearing up. Continue up here. My brush is getting a little dry. I'm going to add some water. And you can always stop and pause and look at your painting. Now here it's creating a line. Well, I can correct that by just adding some water. So now I'm going to continue over here and take some of the paint, go along the leaf, and kind of spread it out here. Just kind of dabbing it and spreading the, basically, if your brush feels dry and you're trying to spread the paint, it won't go as well. You can add just a little water to spread the paint and it does wonders. See, when I look at this side of the painting, it looks pretty plain. But if I look at that, I think, oh, there's depth by the light and the darkness. So I'm going to continue the process of adding a little paint, going along the shape of the flower, and then spreading the paint. And, you know, I'm not sure exactly what it's going to do, but that's okay. That's the fun of watercolor. You can get interesting shapes created. Again, more of the paint. And I'm going to go along the flower here. And I have my paper towel handy. And I think I want this more dark. And add a little more water to spread. You want to pull the paint away from the flower and spread it around. So it's creating the effect of looking like sky. And you can get areas, pretty large areas, done by just adding a little water. I have one last section, and I can probably use just that little paint for the whole thing. And then I think I'm going to be done with this painting. May need to add a little bit for this last leaf here, starting at the edge of the leaf and then continue to spread the painting. And then I'm going to step back, look at the painting for a minute, and overall, there's a lot, you know, you can fiddle with it a lot. And a lot of times you think, oh, I don't like that, and you go and change it, and then you think, oh, why did I do that? Overall, I like the painting, just the flow of it, and I'm going to stop right now. I hope you enjoyed seeing the different things I did in this painting, and hope that they are helpful to you.
I've enjoyed painting with you today. I hope you enjoyed it too. I can't wait to see your paintings. You can send them to me at the email in the description below. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get notified of new videos. Take care and see you soon.